Today we're going to be talking about 5 important questions when fielding a Necron's Catacomb Command Barge. Hi guys, and welcome back to Planet 40k. In this video we're going to be talking about Command Barge and those important questions you need to ask yourself before putting a Command Barge in your list. So we've got 5 questions such as what's the best detachment, what's the best weapon options, etc. And before getting into today's video, I just want to plug my other channel if you haven't seen this already. It's called The Side Quester. It's a gaming channel, but at the moment we're going through WWE sort of fun fantasy Royal Rumbles. You've got like Donald Trump fighting Mr. Beast, fighting Cristiano Ronaldo, Drake and so on. It's a bit random, so if you want to get involved, or just do me a huge favour and subscribe to the channel. There will be other games as well. Astrobot was the previous game we've done. But yeah, head on over to The Side Quester, link will be down below. Right, back on to today's video though. This is the Necron's Catacomb Command Barge. And we should kind of go back a little bit. We started this series before Christmas. I think it was like November time where we stopped it. And we were just doing questions for all the units. So a lot of units have already been done. But of course we've got the Star Shatter Arsenal during Christmas, so that wouldn't apply to those older videos. But we're going to continue the series on and sort of update it as we go. So yeah, we're talking about Command Barge. If you've got any questions that you think you can add to these videos, let me know down in the comments down below. And if that question does get used in a video, you will get a shout out. I think that's all the intros out the way. Sorry that was a bit long, but let's get on to the first question, which I've put, is it resilient? Is the Command Barge actually resilient? Now the regular stats, you've got toughness 8, which is, it's okay. It's not the worst, it's not the best, it's just okay. I'd say it's more than okay in fact. 3+ armor, 4+ invulnerable save, which most vehicles in the Necron's Codex has. 4+ invulnerable save, which makes it quite nice. And 9 wounds is pretty good for a light vehicle. Now, what I like though is the advanced quantum shielding is a lot more effective than you actually sometimes realise. If the strength of the opposing, well, the enemy units that's firing or targeting the Command Barge is stronger than our toughness of 8, so if it's strength 9 or more, then it's a -1 to wound. Not a -1 to hit, a -1 to wound, which is actually pretty powerful, because anything from strength 9 to strength 15, it would normally be 3s, but it's now going to be 4s to wound, which almost puts our toughness level to whatever their strength is. Even if they've got strength 15, it means we're toughness 15 for that moment, which is pretty epic really. So resiliency, yeah, it's got it there. Of course, when you're talking about strength 16 and onwards, then it will be a 3+, but that's still not a 2+, is it? Normally that would be a 2+, so it's still defending against even the biggest and strongest of weapons that people have got. Now of course there is a downside to that ability, and the first downside is lethal hits. Lethal hits, as you may know with our Gorse weapons, as soon as you roll that critical hit roll, you don't need to roll to wound. You've already made that wound roll effectively, so you're bypassing the wound roll. And our advanced quantum shielding only applies to your opponent's wound roll. So therefore, if they're not doing the wound roll because they've already wounded, lethal hits is actually a little bit of a weakness. Another weakness to the Command Barge in general is mortal wounds. I mean, that's a weakness to a lot of factions obviously, but in particular, units that have got an invulnerable save and a decent enough save, mortal wounds going to bypass the armor save, bypass the invuln save, and yeah, you don't get a save at all. Obviously there's a feel no pain save if you have it, but we don't have that in this situation. So there's a few weaknesses that the Command Barge has, and of course there are a few strengths that you can add to it, which would be from enhancements from certain detachments, which we'll talk about in a bit. But is it resilient? To answer the question, I think it is. Considering it's 120 points, I think it is fairly resilient for, yeah, especially with that ability. The second question, we've got the best detachment. What's the best detachment for a Command Barge? I've got 2 answers for this. The first one is already kind of on the screen. It's to do with the Star Shatter Arsenal, which is our newest detachment, which we got in December. Now the reason why the Star Shatter Arsenal is very good for a Command Barge is the Dread Majesty enhancement, which is an aura for 30 points. It basically makes him like a mini Silent King in a way. The Silent King has one of those abilities with the Trike abilities, re-rolling hit rolls and moon rolls of a 1, and that's what this Dread Majesty enhancement does. Now also the detachment allows vehicles to assault, and this is a vehicle, so they will be advancing and still firing, or advancing and still, being able to buff other units with this enhancement, for example, or the resurrection orb that it carries, for example, or adding OC to friendlies nearby. So I think this detachment is one of the strongest for the Command Barge, especially when you're flanking it with very powerful units such as Doomsday Arcs or maybe even Catan. Now the other detachment that I wanted to mention while answering this question is the Awakened Dynasty. Now the Awakened Dynasty, you've got an enhancement here which is the Dermal Bond Enagic. I can't remember what the word is. It'll be on the screen when I do it, but it's the Dermal Bond is how I remember it, and it's a 4+ Feel No Pain save. Now that's very useful on a single model unit. I mean, if you put it on, like I say, a Scorpec Lord that's got 6 Scorpec Destroyers, yeah, it's useful, but by the time that your opponent gets to the Scorpec Lord, they may not even actually get to it because there's so many destroyers that are like bodyguarding the Scorpec Lord. Whereas the Command Barge is on its own, it's not got low op, it's not hiding that well because it's reasonably big for what it is. So having a 4+ Feel No Pain save alongside the resiliency that we spoke about already, the toughness 8, the wounds 9, 3+ armor, 4+ envelope save, advanced quantum shielding, reanimation protocols as well, don't forget, and then having a 4+ Feel No Pain save, and that's against all damage, whether it's mortal wounds, whether it's damage 6 weapons, whatever. You're rolling a dice for every single one of those, and you're basically on average removing half the damage at all times. So if you fail a save and it's damage 6, on average when you roll those 6 dice, 3 of them will probably be a 4+, which means you're only going to really take 3 damage, not 6. So it's a massive help. And again, when you add reanimation protocols, when your command phase comes around, you may just get it all back anyway. So it's very strong enhancement for this model in particular when you're adding it to the other pieces of resiliency that the model has. So that's the two that I would answer this question with, the Star Shatter Arsenal and the Awakened Dynasty. Third question of the day, what weapons? What weapons do you take? The Command Barge has options. You've got 2 different cannons as your option, and then you've got an option between the Overlord's Blade and the Staff of Light. And then the Resurrection Orb, which you always take. I don't even know why it's an option, just take it. Don't know. Anyway, to be honest, the ranged output of a Command Barge isn't fantastic. It's not great. It's not something you should be relying on. I'm normally a Tesla person. I like going Tesla with my Immortals, but in this case, I think the Gauss Cannon is the better option. You've got 1 less shot, okay. You've got the same range, fine. You hit on the same thing, it's Ballistic Skill 3. The strength is slightly less though. That's where it's like, it sort of becomes a bit of a toss-up really. It depends on what you want. The strength is only 5 with the Gauss Cannon, but it's minus 2 AP and 2 damage, which is what I kind of like. Because you've only got 3 shots. If you get 1 through, you might pick off, a Space Marine model. And if you do that for 2 or 3 turns, you're going to be getting 40, 60 points back throughout the game, which covers half the points cost of the Command Barge itself, just from that 1 weapon. So that's the way I look at it. The Tesla Cannon, yeah, it's got sustained hits, just like the Gauss Cannon has lethal hits, but when you've only got 3 or 4 shots, getting a 6 isn't like rolling 20, 30, 40 dice with your Immortals and Warriors and getting a bunch of 6s. When you've only got a few dice to play with, you can't again rely on getting critical hit rolls. So I don't even look at that really with this unit. Strength 6 is nicer, only really against toughness 5 stuff I suppose, and toughness 6 stuff. But when you're talking about toughness 5 units and toughness 6 units, you need AP. I believe you need AP or you need quantity in shots. In this case you don't have either. So that's why again I go with the Gauss Cannon. And yeah, this is only no AP, 1 damage. So that's the first answer to this question. I go with the Gauss Cannon. The second answer is, well, you got the Staff of Light or the Overlord's Blade. Again, it's a bit of a horses for courses. What do you prefer? You can get more range attached. You can get 3 more with the Staff of Light. Strength 5 minus 2 AP, 1 damage. Nice bit of extras, I suppose. Only 18-inch range though, so it doesn't quite marry up to the cannon. But the blade, if you take the blade, it's only melee. So you're losing range completely, whereas the Staff of Light also has a melee profile. 4 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 5 minus 2 AP, 1 damage. Again, exactly the same profile, except you get 1 more attack. But I would, in this case, select the Overlord's Blade. The Devastating Wounds I'm not too bothered about. Again, we've not got much quantity here. 4 attacks only. You've still got to hit with those attacks. You're hitting on 2s in fact, which is slightly better. Your strength 8 though, that's really good. Minus 3 AP and 2 damage. Again, this is a perfect Space Marine killing kind of weapon. You're not going to really use this against Toughness 7, the bigger stuff, because they're going to have multiple wounds. They're going to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wounds or so. So this isn't going to work against them. But you go up against a Space Marine unit and you roll 4 dice and they're all 2 pluses. And then you only need 2s to wound. And then they got a 6+ armor save as well. So you might even end up killing like 3 of them right there. And that's after you've just killed maybe 1 in the shooting phase. So potentially the Command Barge could wipe out 5 Space Marines in a single turn and nearly get its points back just there. So I think that's the way I would go with the 2 damage weapons, which is the Gauss Cannon and the Overlord's Blade. And of course take the Resurrection Orb, why wouldn't you? Next question, when do I need a Command Barge? Unfortunately, you don't really need it that often. Not that often. In the Star Shatter arsenal, yeah, you could do with it. He is a Timu Silent King, but you could just take the Silent King and a couple of Doomsday Arcs, or you can optionally take the Command Barge and 3, maybe. That's up to you, isn't it? But before we got that detachment, so before Christmas, were we taking the Command Barge? And the honest answer is no, we weren't really. Not like in 9th edition where we were taking 2 or even 3 of them. That we were just using them and abusing them. Now, they're not really getting fielded as much unless you're using the Star Shatter arsenal. But personally, I would prefer to take the Silent King. You just get a lot more bang for your buck. Assault on the Silent King is pretty good. There's a lot of weapons there. Yeah, I prefer the Silent King, but some of you may prefer the Command Barge, so it's, again, horses for courses. In other lists, such as Silvertide lists, he can be useful. He's an additional orb carrier, resurrection orb carrier. So maybe if your immortals or your warriors have, you've already you've already used your orb that the Overlord is carrying, and you've got another one nearby with this Command Barge. So that can be useful, and it can also help other units as well that need a resurrection orb. He's something that gives out more OC as well, but sometimes I think, when do you need that? I don't know. It hasn't come up as often as I'd like it to come up. Maybe you can flank him with some Scarabs as a shield and then give them a bit of OC, but a Technomancer could do that as well, or any other Cryptek I suppose. But ultimately, yeah, the Command Barge isn't what it was a few editions ago. It has been brought back to life slightly with the Star Shatter arsenal, but not as much as you'd want it to. Then the final question of the day, problems with the Command Barge. What are the problems that I identify with the Command Barge, whether you're on the battlefield or even just selecting them in your lists? The first problem I've got is lack of synergy with a lot of the detachments, with 5 detachments in fact. I mean, for example, in the Awakened Dynasty, he doesn't actually lead. He's not a leader. You can put the enhancement on him, but if you're using this detachment and you're using a Command Barge, you may as well give him the Feel No Pain enhancement. So he's never going to be leading a unit which is, to do with the detachment rule. Also, if you were to select that enhancement, you could just put that on like a Lone Op Hexmark Destroyer for really cheap, and then have him surrounded with, whatever you want being led, whether it's Doomsday Arcs, Canoptic Doomstalkers, whatever. There's cheaper ways of leading a unit anyway. You don't have to spend 120 points for it. In the Obeisance Phalanx, unfortunately this thing does lack the Noble keyword. I believe it should have the Noble keyword. There is literally an Overlord stood on this thing. He's just riding a vehicle at the end of the day. But even if he did, in the Obeisance Phalanx, the +1 to wound, is it going to be that useful, that effective? Maybe a little bit, and I wouldn't think it was overpowered. The Annihilation Legion and the Canoptic Court, of course, has no relation whatsoever. It's not got the destroyer keyword, it's not a flayed one, and it's not a cryptek. So you can just kind of bin those straight away, unless you're playing Silvertide, but you're not really playing Silvertide with those detachments because you just use the Awakened Dynasty. Hypercrypt is interesting because you can literally give it Deep Strike as an enhancement and then just throw it into a spot, and then it's fairly resilient. But I think we've got much better options in that detachment to do that job. Not so much resilient, but cheap. Death Marks, Hexmark Destroyers again. Even Trike Praetorians, Ophidian Destroyers can do it in any detachment really. There's just cheaper ways of doing the Deep Strike and scoring you the points. You could even throw big vehicles that you've already got on your list. It could be a Doomsday Ark, Monolith even. So there's options, whether they're more expensive or cheaper, they're just better options than just options. So I wouldn't ever use the Command Barge in the Hypercrypt Legion either. For me, the other problem, ultimately, the Command Barge is, it feels like it should be a synergy piece. It should be a unit that synergizes your list. It synergizes your faction, and it should be barking orders. Immortals, do this. Warriors, do that. It should be barking orders out, and it should have much more. There should be more buffs to its data card than it has, but it doesn't. It in fact doesn't really synergize with your list that much anyway. So that's, for me, the main problem. It doesn't feel like a synergy piece, which is what it should feel like. It's leading your army, yet it can't even lead a unit. So that is the 5 important questions that I've asked myself when using Command Barge. If you got any others, let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe on your exits. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.